So, yeah, as Laurie said, I'm project lead at the Social Guarantee. And it is an organization and a concept. The concept is far more interesting than the organization. So, I am going to talk you through what it is. So, what is the Social Guarantee? So, the basic premise is that we all have fundamental things that we absolutely have to have in order to be able to participate in society and thrive. Those are things like housing, healthcare, education, things that it doesn't matter where you're from, what time in history you're from, what demographic you're from. Everybody absolutely needs these things in order to be able to thrive. Now, the social guarantee says we should put the meeting of these fundamental needs at the centre of all of our economic and political activity. So, in a nutshell, that's it, an economy based on meeting people's needs. Now, some of these things like food and clothing, most people will buy them themselves. Obviously, as we enter further into the cost of living crisis, even those basics, lots of people are unable to pay for them at the minute. But the idea is some things we can pay for ourselves. Other things like housing or transport, most people do buy them themselves, but they take up a far higher portion of people's income. And then there's a last set of things like education and healthcare that are incredibly expensive and prohibitively expensive for most people. Only the very richest in society would be able to pay for these things themselves if we didn't have some sort of collective measures. But regardless of how expensive these things are, they are still fundamental needs. We still absolutely need them. So, in order to meet everybody's needs, it requires some form of collective action, some form of pooling our resources together to ensure that everybody has access to these things. So, these are the two basic principles of the social guarantee: is meeting people's needs and collective action. So, what does that look like in practice? It's this. So it's ensuring that everybody has enough money to be able to buy the things that they need, like food and clothing, that it makes sense for people to buy individually. And that money comes through wages in a large part, but also a guaranteed income. So we talk about a minimum income guarantee, which means nobody should fall below a certain income level, which means that they're able to access things like food and clothing. For the rest of our essential needs, things that are more expensive, we need universal services. These are services that we can provide publicly by pooling our resources. And that's things like education, healthcare, housing. And these things need to be either free at the point of use or at genuinely affordable rates. There are some principles of the social guarantee. So different types of needs require different types of services and different types of organisations to deliver them. So what I mean by that is, for example, a national rail service. It would make sense for a state to provide a national rail service because it's got to link the whole country. Something like a home care service, it might make a lot more sense for a local organisation to deliver that service. A local care cooperative who understands the people that they work with and understands the needs of the people in their locality best. So different types of organisations, different forms of ownership are required to meet different types of need. But regardless of who's delivering the service, there are certain fundamental principles that we say these service deliverers should meet. And the first principle of the social guarantee, of course, is that everyone has a right to life's essentials. So nobody should do without good housing, for example, just because they don't have enough money. Everybody should have access to life's essentials. Services must be sustainable. So there is no greater need than a thriving planet. Okay, we all need a planet that we can live in. So services must be delivered in a way that is sustainable and that meets our environmental requirements. Power must be devolved. So people should have a say over, and they know best about what sorts of services they need. So about the buses that they use or the care that they receive. And so power should be devolved to the lowest appropriate level, and service users and workers should be involved in these decisions on how these services should be run. This is what I was talking about just before. Different types of organizations are better suited for meeting different types of needs. But regardless of who delivers the service and what type of organization delivers the service, they all should adhere to standards that are democratically decided. So environmental standards, for example, or social standards, or employment standards. So a certain amount of women should be employed, and the labour laws should be as such. So certain democratically decided social and environmental standards must be met by all service providers. And then finally, which doesn't need much explanation, is that it should be fair pay and condition for service workers. So the benefits of delivering services and meeting needs in this way are obviously plenty. They're plentiful. I'm going to just focus on 4. Sustainability is a really important part of this. Firstly, delivering services in a way that in collectively is greener inherently. So a really good example of this would be a public transport system. An accessible and sustainable public transport system is far greener than everybody having their own car. So delivering services in this way is more sustainable. Another really important element of this is that if we are committed to a just transition, to meeting our environmental targets and ensuring that everybody is brought along that journey, the only way to do that is with collectively provided services. It's with public luxury rather than private luxury. It's making sure everybody has a sufficient amount of what they need rather than some people having loads and other people having nothing. Equality, again, this is a really important part of the social guarantee. So people on low incomes use a far higher portion of their income on these essentials. So the cost of living crisis has thrown this into stark relief. We can see that people on lower incomes spend far more on things like food and energy than those on higher incomes. So if we deliver life's essentials at genuinely affordable prices or free at the point of use, this has a much larger impact on poorer people. So it's much better for creating a more equal society. Efficiency. So publicly provided services are much more efficient than privately provided services, simply because there's nobody taking the profit out of them. So any gains that are made from delivering these services can then be reinvested back into the service rather than going to shareholders who are, I don't know, based in Dubai or wherever they may be. And finally, a really important part of this is solidarity. It's like the anti-Thatcherite thing, right? It's about us as a society saying that it's not about building a safety net that we can punch holes through. It's about us as a society saying we are laying this social foundation upon which nobody can fall below and everybody can build fulfilling lives upon. So it's about us as a society saying we're not going to let anybody fall below this certain level of living by meeting their needs. Yeah, and because this is a Labour meeting, the last part of my talk, I just wanted to focus on what it meant in relation to Labour policy at the moment. And I thought a good way to do that would be on the 5 missions for a better Britain. And there's lots to be celebrated in these things, but I wanted to sort of bring a social guarantee perspective on how we could improve these missions. So first of all, on the growth aspect, an economy based on meeting people's needs doesn't really necessitate growth or need growth at all. A need is very different to a want or a preference. And the one of the fundamental ways in which it's different is that needs can be satisfied. So I can have enough food, but I can never really have a big enough telly, right? I need food, whereas I just want a bigger telly. And it actually gets to a point with some needs where having too much of the thing that you need can be damaging. Food's a really good example. Another example would be security. So we all need physical security, but it reaches a point where there's too many cameras where it's infringing on your privacy, for example, or too many, I don't know, armed forces with guns outside your front door. It's too much security, and it's in fact damaging to people's well-being. So a society met on fulfilling people's needs is a society built on sufficiency rather than on growth. It's saying everybody should have a sufficient amount of the things that they need, rather than everybody should have unlimited amounts of what they want. So it's economy built on need would have different metrics for measuring how well it's doing. Things like the health of the population, educational attainment, for example, and it wouldn't require this ever increasing growth, particularly when we're looking at the climate catastrophe and recognizing that actually unlimited growth is destroying our planet, and it's something that we really need to rethink what the point of the economy is for. There's a lot that Labour are doing on decarbonising the economy, which is like really to be celebrated, and they're putting tens of billions of pounds into decarbonising energy, into insulating homes, or they've pledged to do these things. Obviously, they're not doing it yet, but fingers crossed. But greening the economy is so much more than just decarbonising these high polluting industries. It's about thinking about what the point of our economy is. We have in every town, village, city, all across the country, we have really low carbon jobs in the caring industries, in these relational industries like healthcare, like education, like social care. And greening the economy can't just be about decarbonising energy or electric cars. We have to understand how it fits into every part of how we live our lives, and we need to expand these low carbon industries, such as care and education. So making energy green, making the UK green. Yes, we need to do better with greening energy and decarbonisation, but we also need to expand our caring sectors and think, what is the economy for? Is it for caring people? What do we want it to be for? Do we want it to be for making money, or do we want it to be for looking after people? And building an NHS fit for the future, absolutely. This is really important element. People's well-being, people's health is absolutely essential, and there's not many better metrics for how well a society is doing than how well its population is. But we need to think of health in a much more holistic way. We need to think about what are the determinants of poor health, things like poor housing, things like air pollution, things like low quality food, and expand what we mean by healthcare and take these preventative measures such as building secure, safe housing, reforming our food industry to make sure that people don't get ill in the first place. Making Britain's streets safe. Obviously, physical security is a really essential human need, and that means having a good justice system, and it means having a functioning police force. But it also means looking at what are the causes of crime and recognising that the rolling back of funding on things like social services and community projects and sewer starts and education has caused massive problems for huge swathes of the population, and many people have turned to crime as a result of that. So it's about rebuilding these public services and again taking a more holistic approach to what crime is and how we can reduce it. And then finally, obviously breaking down the barriers to an opportunity at every stage. This is what the social guarantee is all about. It's about making sure that everybody has access to the things that they need. And Labour's focusing on childcare and education with this mission, which is a huge part of it, but obviously it's not all of it. Barriers exist long into people's adulthood, and ensuring that people have access to the things they need is an absolutely essential part of making sure that they can thrive in their lives. So that is it from me. Thank you very much.